What's up, everybody on YouTube? I'm Owen H. Welcome to another episode of What's It Worth, where I'm going to be reviewing the next and lastly, for now, the 2011 The Thing. Before the events of John Carpenter's cult classic, this story follows paleontologist Kate Lloyd, who joins a team of scientists at a Norwegian outpost that discover an alien ship under the ice and unearth its surviving occupant, but an experiment unwittingly frees the creature from its prison and creates chaos as they all discover that it can assume the appearance of anyone in the camp. Now, ever since John Carpenter's The Thing came out, people wanted more of that crazy, form-changing madness that Carpenter's movie produced. And the closest we got was a video game follow-up, which I played a little bit once. I don't have the game. When I do get it, I will review it, but for the time being, we're going to talk about this movie, because this came out almost 30 years, give or take, after the Carpenter movie. And as much as I do kind of enjoy it, and it somewhat holds true to the Carpenter film, and it does deliver intense, terrifying moments, the film has got a few problems that kind of brings it down. One of them being is that the movie is rushed. You can tell that it's rushed because they made sure that they were spot on with the details as to they were recreating the aftermath that Kurt Russell and Richard Dysart in the Carpenter film would eventually find later. Which they did do a good job, even though some of it wasn't exactly spot on. They did a good job with that. But the problem with the movie was it feels like they were just rewriting the Carpenter movie and just delivering basically like the same thing. Like the same kind of kill, the same kind of shots, the same kind of, moments that kind of makes you go, you might as well just stick with the Carpenter movie. Another thing that brings down this film would be the characters. Unlike the Carpenter movie, they were kind of flat. They don't stand out. They're not quite interesting. I mean, I think the only few characters that I did like was Mr. Echo from Lost as Carter's co-pilot. I liked him. Carter, even though I know him as Uncle Owen from the Star Wars prequels and Ramses from Exodus, Gods and Kings, he wasn't too bad. He was kind of like the Kurt Russell type of character. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead, it's like she's got her strong moments and at the same time she's got some weak moments. But the rest of the characters, it was like, I thought they were alright. I feel like they weren't given too much. Oh, fun fact, the one Norwegian, Jonas, with the big red beard and the red hair, that's Krampus from Red 1. Yeah, I already reviewed that movie. We're not going through it again. Moving on. Another downer to this film that I was like, really? What would be the creatures? And that was because they did use practical effects. They did have people in suit, animatronic monsters. And you look in the behind the scenes, they actually did such amazing work. I mean, it looked awesome. With the creature design, I do love Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr.'s work. But the one thing that really ruined it would be the digital renderings. I think if they had just used little or no CGI in this movie, I think the movie would have been much better. I mean, it's like I don't even see the practical creatures. It's just all replaced with CGI. Yes, they do use practical creatures, but they replace them with digital renderings. That's what ruined Alien Covenant in the first place. What it is about the creatures in this film is they all almost have like a central look. Like each creature, like each imitation, kind of just look the same when they transform into their monster form. And it was like, it was kind of disappointing. And And that's like on top of the poor digital rendering that the film suffers from. Now, in the Carpenter film, the creature is this constantly changing thing where it doesn't stay in one form. It's like constantly growing limbs and a set of teeth and like all kinds of crazy shit that like each and every minute that as it's transforming. In the Thing prequel, it's like some of the imitations just pretty much look the same. Like the guy in the chopper looks like the girl that tries to attack Elizabeth Winstead's character, and it's like they have sort of that same look. And when you see the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. The hand creature, that was pretty crafty when it like latched on to Krampus from Red One and just starts sucking on his face. The split face creature, or the crawler, I think he's called. It was like, I mean, he was kind of scary at first, and then afterwards when they did the digital rendering, it was like, what the fuck? And then when he's being burned alive and he's like left outside, it was like they tried to make him look close enough to the Carpenter, like what you see in the Carpenter film. But I think the Carpenter version of that creature was way nightmarish looking. It was scary because it just looked like it looked like one person where his skull is like split and it's morphed as like two different beings. Whereas in the prequel, they just make it out it's just two different people. And it's like, I don't know. And of course, I would say that probably the most disappointing would be the Sanders creature, which is the Thing imitates the lead scientist, goes to its ship, and you see it walking towards her. And that's the only creature I actually found kind of disappointing, because he's almost got that same look that the guy in the helicopter and the girl that tried to attack Kate Lloyd did. And I was like, really? You couldn't come up with something more nightmarish? And he doesn't really change afterwards. He just, it's like, at that point, you could tell it's CGI and a guy in a suit. And it was like, ugh. And another thing about this film that it was like, I kind of wish they haven't done that, was when you look in the deleted and extended scenes that they have in the bonus features, what the fuck? There were so many parts in the deleted scene section they should have left in the movie. Like, there were parts that I couldn't believe they cut out of the movie, and you watch them in the deleted scenes and you're like, really? And this film, I would rank it as, this is one of those movies that it needs a director's cut. I'm serious, because that was just bullshit. And when I mentioned they were trying to recreate scenes where Kurt Russell kind of discovers it in the Carpenter movie, as much as they paid a lot of attention to the detail, there were some spots where it was kind of, there were some holes in it that it didn't really add up because it contradicted what was said in the Carpenter movie. Like the spaceship being de-iced all around. It was buried in the ice. According to the Carpenter film, they used thermite charges to melt the ice, and they end up blowing up the ship. In the prequel, they made it where the ship was about to take off, and its engines melted the ice completely, and they just blow it up from within. So I felt like it was kind of a contradiction. Another thing that kind of brings down this movie just a tad is the music. I mean, I do love the Marco Beltrami score. I do like a lot of his music and a lot of his film. And I did like how he does reuse the tunes from the John Carpenter film. But I feel like they put too much music in this movie that it kind of ruined it. And this is why. In the Carpenter film, they used very little to no music in that movie, which built so much tension. It made it so eerie. Not to mention the music doesn't warn you that something horrible is going to happen. Now, with the 2011 film, the music sort of takes away that eerie edginess that made the Carpenter movie so memorable in the first place. It's kind of overdone in some spots. And there were some aspects where they should have left out music, but they didn't. And they should have stuck with just sound effects and acting. But now, as much as I did love the ending credits where they show, the helicopter showing up, Lars, who's the Norwegian you would see in the beginning of the Carpenter film, pops out, and then you see the dog leaping out, and then it finally leads into the Carpenter movie very beautifully and well accurately, that you're just like, now I'm going to watch the Carpenter movie next. One thing I'm going to say is the dog in that movie looks nothing like the dog in the Carpenter film. In the Carpenter film, the dog had beautiful patterning, like on its fur. Whereas the dog in this film, he has like a black spot here, but most of its fur is like white on the other side, and it was just chaotic. I mean, what? They can't find a snow dog that looks exactly like the one you see in the Carpenter film? Of course, like the Carpenter movie, they left it where it's a happy ending for the main character, but it's kind of a bleak ending to the audience because Kate Lloyd, or Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she is left out in the snow in a snowcat, and she could possibly make it to the Russian station that, according to Carter, is actually there. And it's like they kind of left it up in the air whether she does make it or does she like freeze to death. So if they do a follow-up of those two movies, it's possible you might see Mary Elizabeth Winstead return, but they're going to have to try to figure out, well, how they're going to bring Kurt Russell and Keith David back, even though they're like super old. Digital de-aging? Lookalikes? Who knows? So, where do I rank The Thing 2011? I'm going to say half price. It's good. It does hold true to the Carpenter film in some aspects, but you get the impression like the movie could have been better, like if they weren't too busy copying the Carpenter film. Okay, so I'm reviewing the prequel. That's all of The Thing that I got so far. I'll review the game when I eventually get it, play, and beat it. So, please subscribe, please leave a comment. I'm Owen H, and have a nice day.